Hello and welcome to another MBUK podcast. I'm Rob Weaver and this is Tom Marvin. How, Tom?
Hiya, how are you doing?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Eurobike good?
Eurobike was great. Those are great videos on the channel. Get
Watch
that plug in.
Yes, watch those definitely.
Please watch them.
Now today we are joined by a legend of the sport, the first ever Brit to medal at a UCI event, and an industry stalwart. I think that's fair to say.
Well, that's a nice way of being put.
Dave Hemming. Welcome, Dave.
Guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
It's quite an honour to sit in this chair. You've had some names in this chair, so rubbing bums with some great people.
There's been some big names, and we have another big name.
Yeah, another big name. Exactly. I guess we should probably start right back at the start. How did you end up going to the first World Championships?
So I've always been a bikey kid, you know.
Okay.
So I was BMX in the late 70s, disappearing with my friends, you know. And I think about the distances I rode back then. I wouldn't let my two boys go that far now. It's crazy. And then I've continued riding into school and with my friends Toby and Paul that I've been friends with for over 40 years. We still ride bikes together. We were riding last weekend. They're more road, but I'm pushing them back onto the mountain bike. And I went and watched my first mountain bike cross-country World Cup, which is at Crystal Palace in central London.
Ali Pali.
Crystal Palace Park.
Huh.
Not Ali Pali, Crystal Palace in South London. And it was a Le Mans star, and I got to meet the stars of the sport that were being talked about in the magazines. And, you know, your Mike Kluges, your Thomas, Mike Closer, and all those guys, and Dave Baker and Tim Gould. And we were just our own little crew, the COD crew, we called ourselves. And they were like, this is a pretty cool sport. And that September, my other best friend went to the Malverns that year in the August. He's like, mountain biking's fantastic. You got to go racing. So I found a race local in Dorking and cross country, because that's what it was then. It wasn't the multi-disciplines, the multi-bikes, all that sort of stuff. And I went and did a cross country race and raced against a guy called Sam Humphries, which is another legend of junior status, and basically beat him in a cross country race, won a load of prizes. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And that's where it kind of began. And at the time, I was competing at a really high level in judo, right, and literally switched sports overnight. I was like, yep, I like cycling. I joined a little road club called Addiscombe CC, and kind of cut my teeth there with those guys. Went into a cyclocross season, so I did a bit of mountain bike cross country, and then it kind of got cold. I raced through that winter, and within 2 months, Chain Sport at the time, which was the distributor for Gary Fisher and Klein, Gary Fisher's like, let's get, you got any riders that we got to, you could put on the team. And so Steve Wallen was working for them back then, the late and great Steve Wallen, dear friend, and MBUK legend himself. Yeah. And back then it wasn't, the marginal gains 1%. It was, Steve was top of his game in cross country. He was a real fast guy, and they said, there's this kid that's pretty quick. Take him out around Richmond Park. Take him for a ride. And the deal was, Steve was like, if you can keep up, we'll give you a little contract. And I'm like, okay. So I poured myself out on my bike that day, keeping up with Steve, and they're like, yeah, great. So let's put you on the Fisher bikes. So I rode a Fisher AL1, full rigid, toelets and straps. Pretty scary bike when you look at it back now. 26-inch wheels. I mean, I look ridiculous on a 26-inch wheel bike now. So that was kind of the start. And then I raced that 1990 season, and I won the Southeast Winter Mountain Bike Cross Country Series, which was at venues like Basildon and where that now the Olympic Park stands, which was the old Eastway circuit. Right. And in a couple of months of being on Gary Fisher, with them being the distributor for Klein, they moved me onto the Klein Attitude, the classic green, white, magenta Attitude with a Campagnolo group set. It was just bonkers. Most people don't know that Campagnolo did mountain bike group sets. The Clue group set with the bullet shifters, which looking back were horrendously dangerous. I raced the whole national series that year. And it was my parents at the time. I was still in school. I was 17 years old, and I would take myself on the train with my backpack up to Nemba races and all kinds of stuff. Get on a train all the way to Scotland to race a World Cup. And my parents were like, he's actually not too bad at this. And I made national team that year to go to the first inaugurated mountain bike World Championships in Durango, Colorado. Yeah. And so we went out, pretty big team. And it was, for me, it was the first time traveling without my parents, and certainly first time to America. It was just a really eye-opening experience. A kid from Southeast London.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, back then, I did sound like an extra out of a Dick Van Dyke movie. Hello, Mary Poppins. My mum, God rest her soul, she passed away 10 years ago, but my mum would always be like, he speaks so nice, my boy. I mean, it's a bit of a play on how she sounded, but I was like, Mum, do stop it, please. But yeah, so we went out to Colorado, and I was with Nick Craig, David Baker, Tim Gould, Fred Salmon. It was all the big hitters at the time. So I learned a lot from those guys. But I didn't stay with the national team.
Right.
Because they didn't have the budget. So my aunt helped out with some finances, and I stayed with the Klein team. So here I am with Cindy Whitehead, with the Klein team, and Andy Tout and people like that. So again, it was another like, my God, these are legends of the sport. What am I doing here? And we did the acclimation training. I think we were there 3 weeks in total, because Purgatory was
really high, right?
It's really high. And a kid from Southeast London. I mean, it was like,
I
get there and I'm taking my socks out the bag. I'm like, this is awful. And we were climbing up over sort of 12,000 feet and doing stuff like that. And then we went and we raced the Norba National Finals.
Oh, cool.
And we won every category bar the elite. So I won the Norba National Finals cross country couple of weeks before the World Championships.
So you clearly do all right at altitude.
I was all right. Yeah. I've never really struggled with the altitude.
Oh, that's
so
good. Handy.
And so then I at that event it was kind of like, right, I'll do the trials. I loved doing the trials thing back then. It was just again growing up, just hopping over stuff. Again, Hans Ray, big hero of mine, and I was just seeing him at the weekend at Eurobike, and it's always high fives and hugs. But still like, that's Hans Ray. Like even today, nearly 40 years on. And so I entered the trials competition, and Rory Hitchens was like, you got to represent Team GB, and I've still got the GB flag shorts, baggy shorts they gave me. They're more like Lycra shorts now. They're fitted now, but back then they were baggy. And so I competed in the beginner class trials, and I won the category. So I won won the World Championships in trials, but it wasn't such a big thing then. So not many people know that. I didn't bother with the dual slalom. I thought, that looks a bit sketch. But I was up for racing the downhill and the cross country.
Yeah.
And so I raced the downhill. I qualified, I think, 6th. And so I had to make up some time. And I ended up leading for a bit. And then Joey Irwin came down. I was racing for Yeti. And I ended up getting the first inaugurated UCI Mountain Bike World Championship medal as a silvers in junior downhill.
It's very cool.
So within a year or two of just jumping a mountain bike?
So raced in September 1989, and Durango was September 1990.
So you've done a year of racing, and you came second
at the Worlds. Yeah, and then I was top 20 in the cross country because we were there riding for Jason Elliott, Jake Elliott, who was riding for Fat Chance, Sugar City Cycles. And so all of us were there to try and keep him near the front and control the race a little bit. So it was, so there's a bit of a road element back then.
I was going to say, it was a bit team orientated.
It was team orientated for sure. Huh. So yeah, that first World Champs we had me in downhill with a silver, Tim Gould with a bronze in cross country elite, and Jake with a bronze in cross country junior. So it wasn't a bad outing.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we certainly gave the Americans and some of the Europeans a bit of a we're a country to contend with. So it was, and then it led into 10-year professional career and complete industry career. I always knew that I wanted, from that point, wanted to be involved in bikes for the rest of my days.
So how did things change specifically after that medal when you got home?
Yeah, so I mean, from there, it was Chain Sport decided to kind of wrap itself up, and the Gary Fisher Klein thing kind of folded into the Trek portfolio sort of stuff. So it was look for a new sponsor, and basically I was talking to Chris Turner, former Pacific, MBUK founder, and Tim Manley, and we created the first MBUK mountain bike team, myself and Sally Hibbard.
Yes. So
it was back then. There wasn't a huge choice of bikes, but if you got something unique, it was pretty cool. So it was either a Klein or something like that. But Chaz Roberts built me 3 bikes, so I rode 2 White Spiders, and sorry to your listeners, watchers, readers, I had a Dog's Bollocks as well, which is the famous one that stood for something. I can't quite remember. I'd love to get somebody to remind me of that. It's an age thing. I kind of go, does it stand for? And so those bikes were decked out with Tioga disc drives, and I worked with Adrian Carter at Pace and Kathy there. Pace were an emerging suspension fork company because at the 90 Worlds, the Rock Shots came out, and it was a who's who got them. They were like literally unicorns. Suspension, what's that all about? And so I helped Adrian and Duncan at the time develop the first ever Pace suspension fork. And it was like 30 mil, 3 runs, you had to rebuild it because it sucked in more dirt than... It was like running a vacuum cleaner. It's locked out again. So there was a lot of crazy times on development back then.
Because you started off on... I remember like reading the mag from probably 99 is when I started reading. But even then, like Chaz Roberts' Dog Bollocks was like... And obviously as an impressionable youth, I found that hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But it definitely made an impression. But you were racing it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I got the first ever one off of Chaz's, like made to measure. Black and white. Joe Burt, mint sauce, came along and did a custom paint job on it. So there was me at one end and a leash going all the way through the Wes Roberts to what we call Pepe, the dog, and he's running like classic dog style, back legs forward, front legs through there with little pink Tester clay painted in. And then on the down tube, there's a cartoon of my mum hoovering. And then on the bottom bracket, with my arms wide as my cartoon character, me shouting the dog's bollocks. So that bike actually, went back to Chaz, and then Chaz closed his business and retired. Yeah. He's an old guy now. His brother Jeff still builds. But that all got sold off, and then some guy sent me a random kind of Facebook thing. Hey, is this actually your bike? And I'm like, yeah, it is.
No
He's like,
way.
have you got any pictures of you on it? I'm like, yeah, totally. So I sent him pictures, and he managed to get all the parts to build it up exactly how I had it. You look at the stems you rode back then.
Terrifying.
Seat to the stem handlebar configuration, time zone. Sending it.
Surely you want that back.
I've got a list of every bike I raced.
Oh, no way. Really?
And I got pictures of most of them.
Yeah.
And in my mind, because I've got my 2 young sons now, George and Austin, it's a book I kind of want to put together. And I think there'll be a lot of people that would be interested in my stories and tales about each one of those bikes and what was unique about them. But more than anything, just for my sons to kind of go, wow, Dad raced a lot of bikes. And if I had every single one of those bikes now, it would probably be possibly the coolest evolution showing of how the sport has changed, but also some of the coolest bikes. People are just like, that bike you raced then was insane. So yeah, I've had some good toys, and it continues.
We'll come on to that.
We all come on to that.
Yeah. What was after that? What was next? Because you were racing for Stiff.
So
on orange bikes, is that right?
That was orange and Santa Cruz. So it was inside the first year of Santa Cruz, testing out the bikes. But between MBUK and Stiff, so it's 91 to 95. 92, I raced on the World Kona team. So I rode with Joe Murray.
That's right.
And a few other absolute legends of the sport as well. So I did a lot more World Cup racing then. And I remember racing with my best friend Vince Camp, who's still riding, still at a very high level, amazing artist, and paints cyclists, and it's fantastic. But he was a junior and was like, oh my God, I gotta go ride Dave Hemming. And I'm like, I'm just Dave. Let's just go ride bikes. And we got our team kit, and it was the purple and orange stuff. That's that retro. It's a still classic look, right? Cool. So we're racing the World Cup at Plymouth, and I go past Rory Hitchens, and I was in a decent spot, and I said to him, hey, listen to the crowd as I go down the pipeline. And I was railing it, and I got it wrong. I went over the bars, broke my collarbone in 2 places. And they took me to hospital, and back then, Zips stopped there. And they're like, oh, I'm going to have to cut your jersey off. I'm like, no, you're not. It's the only one I got. You can't cut my jersey off me. So I made them take my jersey off over me like this. And I raced the Worlds later that year, Bromont for Kona. And our sighters basically said, if you come out onto this right turn, onto this ski run, and you can see the rider turning off, right at the bottom, you're inside your 30 seconds, so you're catching your 30-second man. And I was like, wow, I'm catching my 30-second man. My 30-second man was Dave Cullinan.
No way.
Dave Cullinan won the Worlds that year because I turned into, it was like, I'm on it, went over the bars and broke this collarbone. So I had 7 weeks between breaking my first collarbone and breaking my second collarbone. And my season was a write-off, and I had to race the national championships. So I went to the national champs in Scarborough with a collarbone that only had been healing for 3 weeks, and just put a figure of 8 harness on and raced the downhill and got silver at nationals so that I made the British team. Otherwise my season would have been done. It was a painful day. But yeah, and then broke my collarbone at the Worlds. And then they rushed me into the medic centre in my GB jersey. They're like, do you want to keep your jersey? I'm like, no. We've got this one off.
Yeah, we're done on that.
I had that for years in the frame, kind of all spread out, because they went to town with the scissors.
Right.
So yeah, and then I had to fly home with a broken collarbone from East Coast Canada. It was awful.
So were you full-time at this point?
Yeah, literally 1991 I turned professional. I just finished school, did my A-levels, and I was like, I'd like to go to university, but I don't know, just to see where this might go. And, I was doing loads of stuff for MBUK, because in my mind it's like, and I still say it to people, is when you're not racing, what can you do to get more bums on seats? What can you do to get people riding bikes? What can you do for your sponsors? And so I just made myself available. So I'd be calling Steve Bear and Tim Manley and saying, guys, I'm free this week. Steve Wallen just got me on the wrecking crew for bike testing. So, it was just doing everything I could. Back then it was a £50 here, £50 there, and it paid the bills. I was living at home, so it was just like stockpiling a little bit of cash. But it wasn't much money in the sport back then. But, you did it because it was super cool.
And you're in dirt as well. I mean, that's
so we
iconic.
roll on to 1995.
Yeah.
I mean that as we celebrate this year, that's 30 years this year that we made dirt. And I had new sponsors then. I was riding for Stiff, Santa Cruz, and Orange. So it was kind of a split bike contract because you didn't have the bikes like this that can kind of versatile and do all of everything. So I had the Orange O2s with full Paul's components on them, Cook's cranks, and 2 of those to race cross country and stuff on. And then I had a Santa Cruz Heckler, which was kind of like my first full suspension bike, 1995. And I was like, this is absolute business. Was it 95? Yeah, it was 95. Yeah, 95 that was. So like first real full travel kind of bike.
Yeah.
Yeah, but geometry on it was like, you look at it now, 26 inches wide, you pull the back brake, you go over the handlebars. Yeah.
Were you still racing cross country and downhill? At what point did you specialise, or did you just do everything until you stopped racing?
No, I did actually kind of go, it's hard to do everything. As the technology got better, races got better, more focused and that side of things. And I was always a guy that was looking at the technology. I would do nutrition diaries. I got to the point in downhill racing I was using potentiometers and data loggers to record suspension travel. Right. I had a former Formula One engineer helping me with that, and we mapped courses and drew maps of the courses. But yeah, so 1995 was the last year. I went to the European Champs for Great Britain. I raced pro downhill, pro cross country, and pro dual slalom for Team GB. 3 events in one weekend. I did pretty rubbish at all 3 because it was too much. It's too much. You get to the point, when Cy Payton brought the Malverns back, I raced 6 different events in one weekend. And nobody saw me because all I was doing was up on the hill and then a cross-country race, then dual slalom. But I was like, that's what I like. I like riding my bike. So, and then really from there, I kind of just, did my major in just World Cup downhill racing. So just raced the World Cup circuit from there on. So,
and what was it like when, so did Pete Tompkins approach you about the dirt thing? Was that a Tim thing?
No, it all came about. Pete was great on organising all that. Yeah. But we were staying up at Pete's and Jason was there. And if you've got one of the original kind of dirt videos, there's a little clip down. So I had a little camcorder and we just went filming stuff and just Jason and I being, having fun. And Pete put it together and came to MBUK with it and said, look, I think we've got something here. And if you've got an original dirt at the end, it's probably not a very PC piece of video now, the world we live in, but Jason and I running around in our boxer shorts with pillows stuffed down them, pulling silly faces and noises, and it's just stuff like that. So it really came from that. And then so that would have been, we filmed that in March 1995 up at Pete's place and got good weather, and Scott Dominic was involved and Jez Avery did his bit. So yeah, it was quite a gathering of the clan. So with Jason's passing this year, because at that European Champs in the Czech Republic, I got back and I got a phone call that Jason had been killed on his motorcycle, and you're just like, what? How was that even possible? What? Best bike rider, one of the best bike riders in the world, lost control of his motorcycle. What? No, can't be true. So really, that 1995 year with doing dirt, every time I see that, it just reminds me of my friend that's no longer here. What could he have been? Because he was a bloody great bike racer then. Yeah. He was starting to do track stuff. He was the first guy to get a big US deal for the downhill side of things. This whole thing at Mammoth Mountain Kamikaze.
Yeah, the Kamikaze, yeah.
The funny stories of Kamikaze.
Did you race that?
Yeah. We all know Clive Goslin, right?
Yeah.
One of my dearest friends. And he said, when I met him, I started my own team. So I had a year when I didn't have a sponsor. So I was like, I'll build my own team. So I spoke to Chris Chance. I got Rock Shocks. I got Onza. Pulled together my own team. We did that green and blue Harlequin Fat Chance Yoedi.
Yeah.
And they painted it green at the front, blue at the back, and said to Chris, can you paint it one side blue, one side green? And so when you turn around, it just looks like a completely different bike. And Clive was trying to get into some mountain bikes. Like, we were riding a little bit ago. I said, dude, come and ride on my team. It'd be super fun. And it was. And I took him to Mammoth Mountain. To this day...
Oh, you took Clive?
Took Clive, yeah. We went to Mammoth Mountain.
Baptism of fire, then.
Yeah, and I'm so glad we didn't have social media back then, because some of the stuff we all got up to, those stories need to stay there, or they never get written down or spoken about on camera. But racing perspective, I was practicing with Clive, and he was in front, and we were close to 50 miles an hour on that. I mean, you think about it, we had 60 mil travel, front and rear. The rocks there are basically baby heads. They're huge. And Clive goes over, and Clive crashes better than anybody. He's really good at it.
I've never seen Clive.
He's really good at it.
I mean, he's a hell of a bike rider.
Yeah. He's
incredible BMXer.
Yeah, he's just raced past the ports this past weekend, which I should have been at. And I was like, I can't wait to go. You guys, it's going to be so much fun. I was like, oh, it's Eurobike. I've got to go work. Damn it. But he went over the bars at 50 miles an hour. He's not tall, right? He ran it out. It was just like, bing, 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 bing. He's like, and I'm trying not to run him over and laughing at the same time, you know. So yeah, stuff like that. So yeah. So really, kind of after that Czech Worlds and the dirt year, I kind of moved into just racing just down on kind of more gravity stuff. So yeah,
nice.
It's quite the back catalogue there.
Okay.
Yeah,
right.
right.
A lot of riders, a lot of bikes.
Yeah, it's deep. It's a deep catalogue.
So how long were you racing? When did you stop racing? 99, was it?
Yeah, so end of 99 going into 2000 years. So
you're Marin at that point.
Yeah, I finished my career with Marin Mercedes-Benz. I broke my back for the second time. So I broke my back at the Vale World Cup in 94, racing for the Rocky Mountain World Cup team. Simon Burney, the god of kind of racing and management, saw it. He said it's still one of the worst crashes he's ever seen. They had to revive me on the course. I don't remember it. They thought I'd broken my cheekbone, but I'd actually broken my back, just broken a piece of a vertebrae off. And they didn't x-ray me for that. And I disappeared out of the hospital, concussed, and I went missing for 4 hours. They found me on top of a car park in Vale looking out going, I don't know who I am or where I am. So lawsuit central. No, you never got sued, it just is what it is. Yeah, and then finished with Marin Mercedes. And that was kind of really fun working with John White and Ian Alexander and the team there at ATB Sales, because we were what they call like an added value distributor, because we designed the Marin bikes globally here in the UK.
Yeah, because you were developing the TDH bike, right?
Yeah. So they had that monocoque frame at that time, and it was like riding a bass drum. They filled it with foam, they filled it with sandwiches, marshmallows, whatever it is, but it still made loads of noise. So we then developed the DH FRS. So it was a single pivot, coil over rear end shock. It was like the first sort of 150 mil back end bike. It still had a 71 degree head angle. It was ridiculous. And I always laughed and joked to Pete, the guy that ran ATB. So I was like, great, finally got a bike named after me, the DH FRS, the Dave Hemming FRS. He's like, oh man, we need to change that. I'm like, no, I don't. So, and then that team was super cool. You know, James Alloway, Steph Gleed.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and Paul Lazenby. Paul Lazenby, the first guy to win a national championships on a
full sus.
Sus, and it was full sus.
Yeah,
it was. It all moved. You know, Paul's a nerd with the tech side of things, but a great racer.
Yeah, another great guy as well. Absolute legend.
Yeah. So I still see so many people I raced with over the last 3 decades. But and then the times, all that time spending so much time with Steve Bear and stuff like that. I mean, Steve gave me some big love here when he was here. We did a lot of cool stuff together over the years. Just the other day, someone flashed that article, which I still think's the best one I did, was that 7 things you should never do on a mountain bike. So there's that picture of me upside down flipping into a swimming pool on a Fat Chance Yoedi, and like the retro crowd now just like, that's just so criminal. It's so wrong that you did that too. It's like, no, that's what you did back then. You just kind of made stuff up. Tim would come up with those crazy plans. Yeah. A little brainstorm and say, right, go do it. There were certain things I did turn down. I never wanted to do the dancing with my bike photo shoot.
Right, yeah.
Jamie Tatlow. He's never lived it down.
I was going to ask, obviously you did a lot of features with MBUK. You were doing a lot of racing through the 90s, but you're saying you're involved with the mag quite a bit as well. So was that, photo shoots, features, testing, racing stuff?
Yep.
Any particular standouts?
On the feature side of things, I mean, the racing was the racing. You kind of looked back then for what you didn't have the digital side of things, so you had to wait for the magazine to come out. It was that cool thing. Go to W.H. Smith. Did I get any pictures in it this week? And I mean, it got to the point that some of my sponsors at the time were like calling the late great John Stevenson, John Valentine, saying, "Can you stop putting him on the cover? He's on an exposure contract with us, and it costs us a lot of money because he wears our helmet." But Yeah, the features around Chamonix I did with Steve and
Nice.
Tim Flukes. You know, we did some great stuff there, and you find this gnarly stuff like there was a big concrete pipe that we rode, and I'm gonna get totally over on this, and Steve's like, no, I'm gonna do it. And we just there, and he's just got the picture, so and that ended up in the mag. But yeah, some really cool stuff, just great location riding sort of thing. Yeah.
The features back then, you know, obviously, I say I started in 99, 2000-ish, but even then, you know, post then, like the features in MBUK were always completely wild, you know, whether it's hot air balloons, underwater, whatever it might be. There's,
chitty bang bang.
Pretty wacky times, the pantomimes.
Yeah. I did one with Kelly Sloan. It was a pantomime sort of boxing thing, and I was petrified because she's gone on to do cage fighting and all kinds of stuff.
She does UFC stuff.
The
right?
UFC stuff. Yeah, I was like, I went and watched her in her first UFC fight. The other competitor wouldn't get in the ring with her. So, but yeah, we've all kind of done lots of crazy things. And, you know, it's all meeting up at shows and riding things like Bootleg Canyon and stuff like that. Interbike back in the day.
And we did that together, didn't we? Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, it was good times.
Do you look back on those days and wish mountain biking was still like that? It's a bit more professional these days, perhaps.
Yeah, it is really professional. I mean, you know, that second that like Steve Peat got that contract with GT, you know, his game went up. You know, he really became like the superstar that he was meant to be. You know, we all watched him race Worlds afterwards. Like, dude, he's got to win it at some point. So, yeah, everyone got more sort of techie on the downhill side of things. They started getting coaches and, you know, very good mechanics and that sort of stuff. So it became very professional, which was good. It was really good.
Are you glad you kind of called it a day when you did, or do you wish you eked it out a bit more?
I mean, I always said that there's going to be a point I can't do this. You know, the kids today. I mean, Jackson Goldstone. My God, that kid is. I love watching him ride. And you know, the thing is, these days, is the sport has moved on so much because of the technology that's come into it. And you know, I look back on events like what was called the Trophy Pic Blanc, which is the Mega Avalanche Cup at Alpe d'Huez, which just happened yesterday. And you know, it's 30. They're saying it's 30 years old, but the actual event started in 1991. And I look at what I was racing. I was on MBUK. I raced that Roberts White Spider downhill with a pace fork on it at Mega Avalanche Cup. 30 mil suspension fork, bar end seat up the wazoo. And the course was longer then. It was 35 kilometers. Now it's 20. So, and I got second at that race.
Having ridden that,
Yeah, it's nuts.
on a bike in 2011, I wouldn't touch that on a rigid bike. Jesus Christ.
Rigid bike. I mean, we did a piece for MBUK on that, and that was quite. And the photographer for that was a local French photographer, and he was a speed skier, and he had the 212 kilometer an hour record on Alpe d'Huez. Speed skiing. He was mad as a box of frogs.
Yeah.
So I mean, I look at it now like the bikes I ride with Niner. You know, if you take that bike back 20 years, you win. You know, or maybe 25 years, you win every World Cup.
Yeah.
Tire technology, wheel
mad,
size, suspension, you know, technology, you know, geometry. Geometry is one of the biggest things that we got right in mountain biking.
Yeah.
So,
On our notes, it says something that you got the world bunny hop record.
Yes.
What's the deal with
You
that?
yeah, technically two, right?
Technically, I had two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of those things you did at every event. There was always a Proflex Daihatsu bunny hop competition. Jez Avery and I, you know, we'd go head to head on that. And we did the bike show at London, which was the year that we shot Dirt.
Yeah.
We almost broke it there. We shot the Dirt movie and then went to the Malverns, and I broke it at the Malverns, 42.5 inches.
Yeah.
On an Orange O2 with a stem that's 150 mil long. And again, you just look at stuff like that.
But the photos are incredible, aren't they?
Yeah, like my nose is on the seat.
Yeah, how tucked up you are. Yeah.
I mean, if I did that now, I'd be in A&E. Something would go. Bang,
Strap him down, put him on a stretcher.
Yeah, and then the same year, Jason, that was a couple of years before actually, because Jason McCroy and I, one of the members at Bingley, again, those events you did cross country, downhill trials, the whole 9 yards, right? And they had the bunny hop competition. And so Jason McCroy and I still hold the bunny hop world record on a tandem.
How does that even work?
Well, you either make it work or you really hurt your arms, because one of you doesn't pull, your arms come out your sockets. So yeah, we set just over 9 inches. And we were like two guys that were super fit, just hauling ass through this grass, just 1, 2, get it up and over. I mean, the crowd were going crazy. I mean, that was the thing back then. We did it at the Malverns last year with Jez, And, the crowds were like, what is this? But back then, the crowd was like 10 deep. It was a couple of thousand people watching you hop over a stick.
It's mad. It was mad.
Simpler
Malverns
times.
were crazy about them, weren't
Times were much simpler then. We're so easily pleased.
they? But the Malverns was like, it was bigger than a national event, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of who
absolutely.
it attracted and
absolutely.
all the names.
Yeah.
And
I've only ever missed 2 Malverns races in its whole history.
really?
Yeah. I was one where my lovely wife booked a family holiday. I was like, well, the Malverns, someone we're going on holiday. I'm like, no, you don't understand, it's the Malverns. And I kind of bowed. All right, we're going on holiday. But yeah, they're coming this year. My wife and 2 sons and our new puppy. So my kids are going to... I'm slowly eking it in because, again, it's a bit like being a football dad. People are like, why aren't your kids like racing yet? I'm like, if they want to do it, they'll do it. And George is showing some signs on wanting to go to pump tracks and stuff like that now. But
and you've proven you can go pro in a year, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Come on, son.
So they just pick it up when he's, 17, 18, done his A-levels,
Yep,
there's
done.
your job.
In you go.
Yeah,
In
easy.
you go.
Saves you a bit of cash on university as well.
Absolutely. Mind you, it's just another way for me to nerd out because, just take what's big for me and shrink it for him. And I mean, he's got a, really nice Cannondale Trail 20-inch wheel bike. He loves it. And, if I find stickers, I'm like, hey, you want a sticker for the bike? And the sticker goes on. I'm like, no, it's glad it's not on mine. But yeah, I'd like to get Austin to race. Austin's a bit more of a daredevil than George, a bit more like me.
Okay.
And I kind of don't go, well, be careful. I just kind of go, yeah, he's going to crash. He'll crash. But he's pretty hardy. So I'd like him to race the balance bike, both of them to race the balance bike, or the event Si puts on for the kids is so great. See how it goes.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
So once racing was done for you, what was next?
So yeah, like with that second break in my back, I was in a shopping mall doing a kind of like a Martin and Martin demo-y thing because I did a little bit of that as well, and I looped out and broke my spine, and they thought I was paralysed, and luckily I wasn't. I compressed my spine enough not to be able to feel my legs for a few hours. I was like, it's time to hang it up. And I always knew that day would come. And so whilst racing with the technology that was moving so fast, I always made sure to understand it. How does it work? How does it come apart? How have you come to this conclusion? How does damping work and all that sort of stuff? And so started working with John Wyatt and the guys and basically moved into that. So for my first kind of season not racing, I was the kind of national training manager for Manitou with ATB sales. So I would go around, show retailers how to set up suspension bikes, how to service them, that sort of stuff. So yeah, and then kind of progressed there into kind of sales side of things. And as an athlete, what you are is you're a marketeer of your own kind of brand. And I've just taken everything I've learned from being an athlete and applied it to business. The processes. So for me, every day in work is my world championships. Okay, I had a good racing career. I wasn't the best, but I did everything I could to try and be the best. And so applying that to my daily work life is what's worked for me in the business side of things. So really from 2000 to now, 25 yeyears of 25 years, it makes it sound like a long time being out in the field and working. That's kind of what I've been doing.
But you've done stints at various bike brands, right?
Yeah. So I stayed with Marin for a bit. Then I went and worked at Cannondale. I ran the sales operations here in the UK. And for so many people that read MBUK these days, they don't even know that Cannondale made a motorbike. The 440, 4-stroke bike with the quads. So I was one of 6 guys that ran that in Europe, and unfortunately it didn't work out. It was Chapter 11 bankruptcy, but it was a massive learning curve on that side of things. And for me, I would go out on the motocross bike, and I like riding motocross, and then I had a racing ATV as well. And all the motocross shops I'd go to would be like, yeah, I'm sorry, you're actually much better on a quad than you are on a solo. And I'm like, no, I think I'm Jerry McGrath, but I'm not. So there was that. So yeah, I really carved out a lot of good learning on that side of things. And then I've worked for brands. I went back to Marin for a while. Was Norco brand manager here in the UK. Yeah. And then when I went back there, I was developing again with Marin the new Quake 7 full suspension bikes, the real big downhill bikes, geometry slacked, all that sort of stuff, long travel. And that was 2005, and I went to America to present it to Marin to get them to buy in on the tooling, like this is the future of the sport, and ended up meeting someone and moving to America, getting married, and working for Marin out there for a while. So yeah, that was early to mid 2000s.
And how was that? How was life in America?
It was pretty cool. Yeah, Dottie came out and Steve came out and we hung out and did some shoots, and I got the Oxymoron truck, hello, look at that, 6.8 litre V8, dually, did the whole 9 yards, lived on farms, worked for a couple of marketing agencies out there, did Rebel Air Race activation. So again, just got out of the industry for a short period, but still rode as an ambassador.
Yeah,
what people call ambassadors.
Yeah, I met you out there riding, didn't I? Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, so I never, for 35, 36 years, I've raced every year. Every year I've raced some form of bike racing, whether it be so like early 2000s. So I'm saying at the weekend at Frankfurt, because Frankfurt Ironman was on, I did my first Ironman in 2004.
No way.
Yeah, finished racing in 2000, went into work life, carried on eating like I was a cyclist, was a lot heavier than I am now, and I'm about 5 kilos heavier than I should be right now, and I was like, I had a life change, I had a bit of everything got turned upside down on me, and it was like, I need to get fit. My friend's like, hey, I'm going to go and do this triathlon in New Zealand in March in 2004. This is like November 2003. I was like, yeah, signed up for it. First ever triathlon. So I did an Ironman as my first ever triathlon. Oh my God. Never done an open water swim. So we got to the event, flew all the way to New Zealand. I basically got a coach, and Julia was, she won the Dublin Marathon, and she competed at the Commonwealth Games, very good runner. And I said, treat me like I never stop racing. Within a week, my body's like, where are the pies? And I was throwing up. My body was just like, nope. And I just powered through it. I lost 16 kilos in 4 months. I went to New Zealand, and it was a mass start. And a couple of days before, I was throwing a wetsuit for the first time. I'm like, oh, this is awful. What have I done? Choppy water. There's a big Lake Taupo.
How far's the swim in an Ironman?
3.9 kilometres. So here's the thing, right? 6 o'clock
That's a long run.
Yeah, so that's a park run, right?
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
So I'm bobbing like a cork in Lake Taupo with 50, because it was a bit of a smaller sport, around 1,500 people, and you're like, hey, how you doing? This is amazing. Prodigy's playing at 6 o'clock, the sun's coming up, boo, boo. You're like, this is mental.
It'd be amazing if it stayed like that, just bobbing around, right?
But it didn't.
Party.
And then someone started you.
Yeah, the cannon started, and the water turns to a white foam, and I was like, what the hell is this? I swam towards the shore and just swam alongside everyone, just looking at anyone come near me. So, and then jumped on the bike. The bike was okay, and then I ran my first ever marathon. So off of 180k on the bike.
It doesn't seem like the best idea.
No, it wasn't. But I finished 13 hours 11 minutes. I was pleased.
13 hours.
I was 11 pounds lighter when I finished. It's silly.
Cheap entry fees.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Why
Then you're
not?
like, I'm never doing one of those again. A year later, I raced Ironman UK. So yeah.
Where do you do it in the UK?
It was Sherborne back then,
Right.
and now it's up north. And they got
New
one in
Zealand
Wales.
sounds way more appealing.
Yeah.
So typically, I've done quite a few now. So I've done five Ironmans.
Have you got the tattoo?
No.
You're
No.
the only.
Yeah.
I mean, back then it was like, yeah, that's cool. But now you kind of go, oh, yes, yeah, everyone's got one. So, yeah, so I've done South Africa. I've done Holland. I've done, done them all over the place.
Iron Men.
I'm in. So yeah, the whole US. So I moved to the US after that, and spent 8 years out there.
Yeah.
I lived in Portland, Oregon, for most of that.
Cool place to ride bikes.
Very cool. So I raced for Pivot Cycles out there,
Yep.
with Chris Cockles and the guys, and I raced on the Rapha Northwest Masters Road team as well. So again, these are guys that all raced in tour stuff back in the day, and it really taught me a lot more about road racing.
And was that your sort of segue into running the Rapha side of things when you came back to the UK?
Yeah, so 2012, I moved back to the UK. I interviewed in that year with Simon Mottram, the GM at Rapha US, and I heard inklings through pro friends that Rapha was going in to sponsor a world tour team, and so I did a couple of interviews, and then Marin was trying to get me to come back to be more marketing for those guys.
Okay.
And I needed to come back to the UK. I just, more heartache in the US than I did joy in some ways, if you look at it that way. So yeah, I came back to the UK as the commercial manager for Rapha, and so I've been out of corporate life essentially. Done any presentations to colleagues. I had a dog daycare business, with my now ex-wife, and so we have 40 plus dogs a day on our farm. We got separated. She had the business. I was like, I'll get a job, and so I was interviewing for this job, and a friend of mine worked at Wyden and Cannondale, so I wrote my presentation. She's like, dude, it's yours to lose. Go do it. And so I came over, met Simon Mottram, did my presentation, which was a 20-minute presentation, which took 2 hours because we kept jumping off into ideas and stuff like that. And he walked me around here and said, I'd like to give you the job. I was like, great. He said, when can you start? I literally looked at my watch. I was, next week? He's like, you live in America. I'm like, you're moving me. And then he's like, great. We shook hands and he took me around the office, introduced me to people. And he's like, oh, this is Dave. He's going to come and work for us on the new Team Sky project. And there's quite a lot of faces in there going, hi, it's really nice to meet you. And Simon Mottram was just a little bit confused by it. And we went around the office and he got back to his office. He's like, who are you? And I'm like, I used to be a professional mountain bike racer. And he's like, I haven't done my homework. I didn't know that. So it was kind of fun just to get the job on merits of that side of things. So yeah, I did that. And then moving back within 2 weeks, we had team camp in London with Team Sky and all the management. They were doing fits for the clothing. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, have I been run over? I'm in a coma somewhere. I'm sitting in a room with Chris Froome and Bradley Wiggins.
That's pretty wild.
Talking about the 2013 tour campaign, because I didn't see any of the Olympics because I was living in America. I watched some of it, but I was going through a complete upside down life at that time. So to come back into the UK, you know, post London Games, and that buzz of cycling was insane. I'm like, literally people wearing yellow tabards cycling to it. It was like bumblebees everywhere. Like, this is amazing. This is my dream. People have really gravitated to cycling. So yeah, it was kind of in at the deep end with Rapha. Rapha were in at the deep end with the team. Within 2 months, I drove a 7.5-ton truck on New Year's Eve to Mallorca to training camp for the 3rd of January with 26,500 pieces of Rapha clothing in it.
Bloody hell.
It was insane. And so I got there in the truck, 94 suitcases for the team in it. And I still had stuff to fold and check into suitcases. Every suitcase was folded, checked, and packed exactly the same for that reveal moment when they open their suitcases.
Yeah.
And so I arrive at the hotel and the door's locked. I'm like, man, what the hell? And then I wait around. I got a sleeper truck, so at least I got somewhere to sleep, right? I can work in the back of the truck. It'll work. And I suddenly see the door swinging shut, so I run across, jam my arm in. And I'm like, oh, hey, I'm the guy from Team Sky, Rapha clothing. We took over from Adidas. And the guy's like, oh, okay. And I was like, I need to do some work. He's like, okay. He shows me this room. He's like, is this enough? And I'm like, no, I need several rooms. So I bring everything in, and I'm working like this long day. And he comes at the end of the day, and he's like, I have to close the hotel now. I'm like, oh, are there any hotels open? And it's that time of year where everything's closed. And he just goes, there you go. So gives me the keys to the hotel. But it was like staying in a multi-floored, multi-roomed hotel on your own.
Creepy.
It was like being in The Shining.
Yeah.
I kept waiting to see someone ride by on a little tricycle. And it was like all night. I'm like, I'm a grown man, but this is not fun. So yeah.
Terrifying. So what was the change like moving from mountain bikes into that road world? Because obviously you'd had a bit of experience with the XC guys back in the day, but this was another few levels. Though,
it was. And also the sport had really matured as well.
Yeah.
The money had come into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the budget for Team Sky back then was upper 20 millions. You know, it was a big budget. You know, it's F1 kind of mentality now, you know, marginal gains. And so it was really interesting to see the processes of the way they worked, the way the mechanics worked, and way we had to and not engage with the athletes, you know, because they couldn't, you know, risk getting sick and that sort of stuff. So, but you know, you got riders on the squad that I've known, and I'm like, oh, how you doing? And the management's like, who's this guy talking to the riders? And it's like, well, I've been there with this, and it was a very interesting time. So crazy stuff like, you know, you talk about delivering stuff to riders. I packed a bag for Bradley Wiggins, and it needed to be in Milan because Milan San Remo was on, and I knew he wasn't there. I knew he was in Tenerife training, so I flew to Milan, arrived at the team track. They're like, you know he's not here? I'm like, yeah, I know he's not here. So I literally flew to Milan in the morning, had a pizza, had a beer, walked around Milan, and took a plane home. It was stuff like that. They need this, you know, tomorrow. So yeah, it was a lot of learning. There was a lot of learning for Rapha and its staff on that one. It was a big deal.
Okay, how long were you sort of in that?
I was there a couple of years.
Okay,
and then I got headhunted to go and work over at Vulpine.
Yeah.
So I did the Sir Chris Hoy collaboration, and again, it's meeting your heroes, right? And Chris is a couple of years younger than me, and he's such a lovely guy. And so I went up north to see some clients, and his agent said, "I hear you coming up. Chris would like to meet you." I was like, "What?" And so I get in a meeting in the lobby of this hotel, and he said, "I'll be down in a minute." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he comes down. I'm like, "Oh, so Chris, you know, Chris, it's great to meet you. You know, it's great to meet you, Dave. I followed your racing career." I was like, "What?" He said he used to come up and do my dad's mountain bike races back in the day, the Scummers mountain bike races. I'm like, oh my God. You just don't know these paths of crossing there. So, I mean,
he's big into his mountain bike.
He's big into his mountain bike. I mean, he's riding tons again now. And, at that point, you got a bit of banter with him.
Yeah.
You meet your hero. They say never meet your heroes, but you meet Chris and you're like, man, he's everything I expected and then some. He's such a great guy.
Chris Hoyer's the only pro who I've ever it's great to meet a lot of pro riders, but he's the only one I've ever actually asked for a selfie with. Because again, because I followed him through, watching on TV, Olympics was legit. I had dinner with him at the Velodrome when they launched the Hoy bikes. I think it's for kids or something. Went to the Glasgow Velodrome and had dinner with him, and I was literally this is cool shit.
Yeah, and he's so engaging with everybody as well.
Yeah.
And if he meets you once, he'll remember you, which is really nice. You get to the point when you're working with someone like that, like Rory was saying, from one year kind of to the next, I'm working with Bradley Wiggins and those guys, and here I am pulling Sir Chris Hoy's bags through the London Bike Show and just chatting away with him. And having funny things like, we're going for a meeting and we meet at the meeting and he's got the same blue Vulpine shirt on and the same Vulpine jeans as me. And we're like, no one coordinated that. So you have those laughs. But stuff like, him challenging me to wheelie competitions. I'm like, dude, you're going down. I don't care how many world titles you've won, how many gold medals you've won at the Olympics. I will out wheelie you all day long. And I did. so yeah. Chris, if you get to watch this, let's go ride sometime. So yeah, he's a good guy.
Nice. And then after Vulpine, where next?
Yeah, I had quite a tenure in textiles. So it was Rapha down and then next onto X Bionic, the Swiss tech company. Very techy, across multiple sports.
Catalogs like that, right? Thick.
Yeah.
I remember you coming in with those things.
Where do we start?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
Really good stuff. I mean, it was 10 years ago and I'm still wearing a lot of that stuff. It's good made kit. So, but the company that made it, Throw Innovation, were a textile manufacturer. So we made stuff for Decathlon, for Wiggle. We did private label for Jeep, Replay, Prada. So it's a really clever space. And Marco basically was building a portfolio of brands. So he had X Bionic, he created Quin. We had all the textiles, and we bought Tatichi bikes, and we did stuff with Alba Optics and Alchemist wheels. So it was kind of cool to have that hardware element as well.
Yeah.
And then it kind of changed again. I got headhunted again. It's kind of nice to be, people think, I think you can come and do something for us. So I went and for 5 years was the CEO of Free Flow Technologies, which was a mid-drive e-bike motor company from Scotland.
Yes.
Very clever, compact motor.
Yeah.
I learned an awful lot there. I mean, engineers of that ilk, sometimes you're just like, nope, didn't understand a word you said, because it's a very technical world. And, we were literally needed 6 months more cash runway. Unfortunately, our investors said, we've got to draw a line under this now. Okay. So that was March last year that we basically wrapped up the business and closed it. So, for the first time in my career, I was out of work.
Oh, wow. Because they were doing cool stuff though, right?
Yeah. We were literally had brands developing frames and, it was very clever stuff. A lot of ex-Dyson people. I mean, there's a guy here in this part of the world, Martin McCourt from Bath, who was like the global CEO of Dyson for 15 years. He was our chairman. He's still, a business mentor to me. He's such a lovely guy. He knows his stuff. And, our COO invented things like the Dyson washing machine and moved Dyson's manufacturing processes out to Singapore and created that whole factory. So very clever engineering people. And you can see how that can translate into bike stuff. So, fun times. So, 3 months last year without work brings us pretty much up to where we are now. And it was the first time I went out actively looking for work. And I connected with Conrad, my boss now at Quinn. And I was like, I'm not looking for any high pressure, sales, marketing. He's like, look, when you came and sold to us he ran the Bike Shop Velorution chain in London, and they were the kind of head of them times as an urban bike store, the cool Schindelhauers, that sort of stuff. And he's like, you should come and work for us. So within a week, we agreed that I'd come and work for them. So that's been a year now.
So what is it you're doing for those guys?
So I run sales at Quin, and what Quin does is it creates an electronic device that brands embed into the EPS, the polystyrene of the helmet. Mm-hmm. The device is there to recognize an impact. So I start looking and going, I've had some big crashes in my time, and if I'd have had something like this, I'd have made better decisions. Right. And so this will it takes the impact on the outside, but then tells you what's happened to the head form on the inside. Okay. To the point you don't need it until you need it, sort of thing. So what the Quin device does is it calls for help when you can't. So it's connected through your phone, and we're connected in 32 countries directly to the nearest medical call center to you. The device goes off, it knows you're still breathing because the device is so sensitive with its gyroscopes and accelerometers and proximity sensors that it knows. I mean, we can do cough detection. So we build it into PPE safety masks. Right. Any helmet we build it into. We're building it into shoes. I mean, we went to MotoGP last year and did some testing with them because they had helmets. One of the brands has a helmet vibrating at 300 Ks now. We showed them what it was doing. And then we showed FIM and Dorna all the cool stuff that we do, like lean angles. And again, I'm kind of outside of head of sales within Quinn. I get to do that development stuff again. So I'm working with, we have 32 engineers that are based in Hyderabad, India, because Annie, the founder of the business, is from there. Mm-hmm. And so we have London office and Hyderabad. And I've got to go take them out and go to a jump park. And so we've started to work out like G takeoff on landing, height, hang time, G force on landing, lean angles. So certainly talking to like the World Cup about gamifying World Cup racing, Quinn is at the forefront in technology on that we could actually make it really interactive for the spectators at the bottom.
And so it's more than just a safety.
I was going to say, it's
way more.
Yeah, data collection, data possession.
Yeah, it's exactly. When you don't know you need it till you need it. So when you do crash, it's got all that data. And the one thing it does is it puts that data into reports that medics can look at and kind of go, that's actually what's happened here. Because all the graphs we create, we pull it into a render actually of the crash. So we show all the rotational direction that you do in your helmet. And we can actually put 8 of those together. So we're working with a motocross brand and we're going to put 8 of those together. So you actually get a full avatar of the rider. So then it becomes a full training aid. Like, hey, when you come into that corner, your elbow should be 4 or 5 inches higher. We can put it on the nape of a neck of a World Tour team in time trials. Our CDA position right now, you've got to drop your head. That sort of stuff. So there's loads of data there. It's really, and that calls back to my Marin days, 1998, when Adrian from Benetton Formula One and John White from Benetton Formula One, we got data loggers on the bike and potentiometers. It's just all got smaller.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So what's come out of that is my whole kind of, I've always been an ambassador since I finished racing. And for me, it's about how much can I do for the sport now. So I do coaching for riders. I still race enduro. I do acoustic analog enduro, whatever you want to call it. I race e-enduro. I raced half Ironman last year. I'm racing cross country again. And I'm kind of just doing it all because I love riding bikes. And so where I can give back, I can. If someone wants me to help them set the bike up, I do bike fits at home for people. I've got bad back, come over. I'm a qualified bike fitter. I get people sorted on that sort of stuff. And just do what I've been doing my whole life. Just push that knowledge back into people to make their riding better.
You're a busy man.
Yeah,
lots going on.
Yeah.
What's the deal with Niner then? Because it's their 20th anniversary this year.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
What's the deal there? Obviously, big brand with 29-inch wheels, hence Niner.
Yeah, and big thanks to them for sponsoring this.
Yep. The team, it's a great crowd of people. We've got to spend some quality time with them at Sea Otter this year. And so I approached, a lot of names like Duncan McCann. I've known him for years. He's so good at what he does. And I said to him at Malvern's last year, it'd be nice to just because I was for a couple of years without, a bike ride deal. So I just bought what I wanted to ride. But I was like, it'd be nice to just give some social media stuff back to someone. So I said to Duncan, hey, any chance we could do it? He's like, yeah, we'd totally give you bikes. So yeah, I've got quite a garage of bikes from them. I've got the Rocket RD09, which is my cross-country bike. I've got the WFOE e-bike, which is the 180 mullet, and that's just hilarious. And then I've got the RIP9 RDO. Yeah. And I've got the RLT9 aluminium gravel bike. And out at Sea Otter when I was there with work, because I was there to see all the brands under the Quinn banner, I did a podcast, and I was part of the launch for the new OR RDO gravel bike, which is basically a gravel bike made for mountain bikers, because gravel bike's super fun. Okay. But what they've done is with that OR is they've made the top tube slightly longer, shorter stem, rake the fork out. The bike would take a 40mm full suspension fork. Yeah. But my first rides were like, you can feel the front wheel dragging a little bit at slow speed, but you get it up into that higher speeds and it is predictable. Yeah. Like these guys, with that 63, 64 degree head angle, you can just stuff it into a corner and know you're going to come out the other side. Put a dropper post on an OR, you've got a bike that just, you can go to mountain bike trails and people are like, have you taken a wrong turn? No, I meant to come down here.
So it's that capable?
Yeah, it's that capable. It's really capable bike. So because they have an RDO, the race day or optimized in every platform of bike they do. Yep. I mean, this RIP9 is so light, so fast. When I switch between the E-mountain bike to this, it takes me a couple of runs to get back in on this, because this is zing and ping. It's all bounces all over the place, but in a great way. Yeah. So the brand itself, you know, they were the pioneers of 29-inch wheels, and it took a couple of years for the geometry kind of to become right on that. And then when it did, it was a click for everybody in the industry. Like, oh, this makes sense. It really makes sense. And then, you know, they're the first guys to wrap a suspension system around it, and it, you know, it's a really well balanced bike.
So of the bikes you have, if you had to just pick one, what are you going to take?
I mean, based on work life, family life, it would probably be an e-bike.
Okay.
Just because it's convenient.
Bang for your buck in that sense.
Yeah, just. I mean, I like riding up, and I don't mind the analog side of things, but it just means, you know, there's that bit of a stick where people say, "Oh, you still get the same workout." You do. I still get the same workout I was doing on this, but I'm just doing twice as much. So yeah, it's fun on that side of things. If I had to have one bike do everything.
Now you've ridden so many different bikes, so many different platforms. How does the Niner suspension system compare to what you were at your peak of racing versus now? Is it night and day difference?
It's night and day.
Yeah.
It's night and day, because we were single pivot at that point. You know, at that point it was, you would blow through the travel quite quickly. So you were looking at progressive spring rates, all that sort of stuff. You know, the smart.
Oh yeah, I remember the
dual rate
round, like the white springs.
Yeah, little bottle shape on them.
Yeah,
it was. I mean, honestly, some of the stuff that brands threw out. I mean, most people never even heard of the isolator front hub. It was a front hub that had 4 mil of travel in it, and we only had rim brakes. So hold on, I'm moving my brake surface out of the way of my brake pads just to take the edge off the trail. And I was like, at the time, like, this is the future. Very not much.
You say that. Tom and I were once at, you remember we got to Eurobike early once, really early, maybe like a day or two before, because we'd been on a different trip. And that guy was trying to convince us.
Spring wheels or something.
Yeah, had 3 shocks.
Yeah.
3 shocks dotted around like an old mag wheel.
Yeah.
And he was like, rigid bike with these in, that's the future.
And when he rode away to it, just sort of go.
You see all sorts of shit at Eurobike.
I know.
I'm not saying it's shit. I'm saying we're yet to catch up with that.
That sounds like a man investing in a program, huh? Take my dollars.
Right, exactly. You wait. 2027.
Yeah, so I mean, linkage bikes really do kind of change that. How, you know, it gets rid of the bob.
Because the CVA systems, it's a dual link design, right?
Yeah, it's really planted. It's really rigid. I mean, that's all. You know, single pivot bikes, you've got a pivot and a shock mounted to a frame. I mean, you've got 3 points to join the whole bike together. You go around corners, you'd have your back end kind of tweaking out. We've been through some evolution.
Compliant. It's fine.
I love that word. It's so well used, isn't it? It's just vertically compliant. So yeah, it's nice to see that at this stage. I mean, what's to come, because it kind of has all been done. You know, the refinement plays a lot in the sport now. You know, how do we make this level of travel bike with this geometry lighter, but not compromise it if you send it off something large? That's the thing. And I think when I pulled this one out of the box, I was like, wow, that is ridiculously light for what it says it can do.
Yeah.
So
you must have, obviously you've seen the transition from 26 through 29, 27.5 in the middle. Obviously, you know, with Niner as well, they were obviously very early on the old 29 again. We sort of mentioned Eurobike. I presume you saw the 32-inch Maxxis stuff there as well.
Yeah, it's weird when you stand at that like 11 o'clock in the morning, you're looking at it going, did I drink a couple of too many beers last night? Because my eyes are playing up. And it's a bit like when I see a 26 now, and I'll get on a 26. It's the complete opposite end of what I can't believe we rode those things to the speeds that we rode them at. So, yeah, is it another wheel size? Reinventing the wheel for the sake of reinventing the wheel? I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty happy riding 29. You know, I ride some mullet stuff as well, and that's a good combination. I think it balances it out when you get into the longer travel bikes to have the mullet. Just means you sit into the bike a little bit more. It's better, more stable in the corners, because you do have to ride differently when you ride a 29er. You know, I've had some of my worst crashes riding 29ers because I throw it in thinking it's, you know, it's smaller than it actually is, and the bike says, no, you're getting off now. So yeah, I find myself staring at the sky.
What was the first 29 you rode? When did you start riding them?
So yeah, it would have been around about the birth of Niner's side of things. So yeah, it was, you know, there's some Marins floating about. My first real kind of dedicated 29er was the Pivot 429.
That was a great bike.
That was a great bike. Aluminium. I had it with the latest XTR group set. It was a cool bike. I raced BC Bike Race on that bike.
Yeah.
On Reynolds wheels. I unfortunately didn't like being raced through BC that hard. I ripped spokes out of the rim stage 2.
It's an expensive mistake, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was running to get to one of the tech stations, and another Brit came past me. He's like, dude, don't worry about it. You've done more racing than all of us will ever do. You know, I was like, you know what? You make a really good point there. And that BC bike race in 2012 for me. So it was 2012. So I'd done some 29ers through the noughties, but I want a high-end 29er. So I treated myself to a pivot and then kind of did a deal with those guys and rode with them for a bit. But yeah, that was a cool bike to race there. That 2012 BC bike race, my best friend Vince was supposed to come over with his brother-in-law and another friend from California. Unfortunately, Vince's brother-in-law passed away tragically before the event, literally the week off sort of thing. Wow. And so I went on my own, and I was like, I'm gonna race for these guys. And so I found myself out at the start off the front with Manny Malmsberg from South Africa, who's a World Cup cross-country racer. I'm like, I really shouldn't be here. But I finished 41st over, I think it was, in a stage race. So,
yeah.
You know, for an oldish guy hitting nearly 40, I thought I'll take that.
Yeah, but dude, you don't know what the Iron
it. So some days I feel like Paper Man. It hurts.
As long as it doesn't rain.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't rain. Yeah, mushy man.
Just back to Niner then.
Yep.
What are you kind of doing for those guys at the minute? Are you helping? Because they sell direct, right?
Yeah.
In the UK and Europe?
Yeah, they do direct in the UK and in Europe. Yeah. I ride for them as an ambassador. I create content, talking to the team. They're like, and they said just 1 or 2 a month. And I got loads more stuff I can do than that. So I raced down at the tracker down in Girona at the gravel event, rode with some of my club mates that have done
that. How was that?
It was awesome. I mean, Girona itself is a whole mecca of cycling.
Yeah.
I mean, the road riding's amazing there. The gravel riding's amazing there. And my club mates from Foxgrove CC that I've been riding with for 10 years, and I openly say to them, I'll be riding bikes with you guys until you put me in a box and put me in the ground. I love riding with them. I trust all of them on the road, you know, and it takes a lot for me to say that with people, because you do these sportive events and you've got people around you like, this is not nice. But my club mates love them. And so 2 of them got gravel bikes for the first time. We got friends down in the Pyrenees. We went there and did some riding. And that was actually really nice because we've been there on the road side of things. Suddenly flip back to the off-road again. And you suddenly realise off-road really is where it's at, because you can just get more remote. You can get out there. You can get better out, higher altitude. And just for them, it was just like mind-blowing.
Really?
Like wow, this is just so different to road riding. So from there, we went down to the tracker and saw all of that buzz and hype around that. And it was a long day on the bike, and they had a great time. But the whole place was just, fantastic. And there's lots of cool bike shops there. And we found one shop. Someone said to me, "Have you been to the shop with the 3 original Kleins hanging up from the early 90s? They got 3 hanging up, all with clear disc wheels on them, all with the appropriate group sets, adroits, attitudes, that sort of stuff."
Did you ride with the one-piece bar and stem?
Yeah, the Mission Control bar. Oof. Yeah, and the thrust headset and that crazy fork.
Yeah,
that bike was rigid.
Right.
Rigid. And that was back then when I got the medal at the Worlds. Vince, who became a teammate in 92 at Kona, MBUK put a picture of me from the Worlds coming around a corner on that bike, just totally on it. And Vince has said that was the picture that inspired him to become a bike racer, and we've been best friends ever since.
That's cool.
And so for my 40th, he painted that picture. He's become a professional artist, and it was one of his earliest paintings. And now he paints Peaky Blinders and all that sort of stuff. He's amazing at what he does.
That's cool.
And so it's a decade thing now. So I turned 50 a couple of years ago. And he's like, I'm just going to do another painting for your 50th. So he said, give me a picture. So I took a picture of me racing from the Malverns. And I'm wearing that Troy Lee Evil Knievel stuff. And so he's painting me a picture racing from the Enduro. So it's just, cool. So every decade I'll get a new painting. Eventually it'll be a Zimmer frame or something.
I guess before we wrap up, any more big adventures? Sounds like you've done a lot already, but it sounds like you're not done yet.
No, I'm not done. So
what's coming up?
I tried to qualify. I went to the Gralic this year up in Scotland just a few weeks ago to qualify for UCI Gravel World Champs.
Yeah.
And woke up the day before the race with my eyes glued shut. I had an eye infection, so I didn't get to race. So that's still on the cards.
Okay.
I want to race some more national cross countries. I'm racing enduro. And just mixing it up, basically. Yeah. And then seeing Frankfurt Ironman at the weekend has got me kind of going, maybe I should do another Ironman. But, yeah. But now really for me is I really want to see if the boys want to get into it. So I'll ride. I mean, I ride to and from work every day.
Yeah.
I do 1,000K every month just commuting to and from work. and it keeps me fit.
Yeah.
I mix that up and it's gravel bike, and I get to ride a little bit of gravel in London, and then at the weekends just riding with my friends, and just talking about the sport. So
That's very cool.
that's pretty much it, really. I'm a bike nerd. I think I'm as bad as Doddy on that one.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry,
Go for it.
I know sort of you said that if you have any bike right now, it'd be the e-bike from Niner.
Yeah.
If you could have one bike from your career past, what would it be?
Good question.
That's a really good question, isn't it? And
Because there's a few.
there is
one
a
or two.
few. You got the Rocky Mountain tie bolts, all that sort of stuff. The Kona Hey-Hays.
And so much nostalgia linked to them as well, right?
Yeah.
That's the hard thing, I guess.
Yeah, and it falls directly to the fact that it is still an iconic bike that's talked about today. For my 50th, Clive and Rich Mardell and a bunch of people, Ali from Fat Creations came together, and Clive subtly put together, because I didn't have a high-end road bike, and he put together a CAD 13, and Bex was starting to paint it in my club colours, which is like 3 shades of blue and pink and white, and she's like, I'm not feeling it. It's got to be the Fat Chance. So she's painted it in the green one side, blue the other, and then Rich provided all like blue and green bolts and wolf tooth stuff, and so it's a completely wonderful. They painted Pee-wee on the top tube.
No way.
They put Pepe so it's a bike that's multiple bikes combined together from finish. So it's got Pepe dog bollocks painted on the top tube. So and then all the CAD 13 logos are done in Fat Chance style. And then the Fat Creations logo is done so it's a bike that I should throw up. I mean, it's got some social media traction. So what bike is it? It's going to be that Yo Eddie team that I had, the RockShox Fat Chance team, with those bikes, because it was so unique.
That's so nice to Clive as well.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Yeah, so it was a teary moment for me at my 50th with, all my kind of ex-racing buddies, my club buddies and family, it was a teary moment. So, it's that era. Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool. Well, on that note, good question, by the way. Very good.
Very good question.
Thank you so much for coming in, Dave.
Thanks for having me. Glad to spill the beans on some crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool indeed. Obviously, stay tuned for more MBUK podcasts coming soon, and make sure you stay glued to the channel for loads of great video content. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Rob.
See you soon.